"Hey, Dad, where are you at?" podcast. So I think the question of the hour is "Hey, Dad, where you at?"
Well, actually, I'm in Playas, Ecuador. It's a little coastal town of about 40,000 people. On No, I've just had people say that to me several times since I've been here.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, we've been here 2 weeks, and it's been interesting. An interesting 2 weeks.
Can you define interesting?
I can. Uh, they had in this is April. They had in February, March. March, they had a new presidential election and a new president was elected. Well, he doesn't get sworn in until last of May, 1st of June. So, current president has time to, I don't want to say act up, but anything that he didn't get done previously, he can pull the bunny rabbit out of his hat and get done now in the next 30 to 45 days.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Oh, wow, is right. Because this past weekend, they said they had a spike in COVID cases, and I don't. Just being here 2 weeks, I don't have any way to verify that. But they put the city on, or the country. We're in a province. We're in the Ganyas province. Playas is. So they put the Ganyas. They put 16 provinces in this country on lockdown. Okay, from
Wow.
Yes, wow is right. From Friday night at 8 p.m. till Monday morning at 5 a.m. No one can leave their home. And when they no means no, because they had military Humvees out here on the highway, the police, and they had helicopters. And I mean, it's serious. Your first offense is $100 fine if they catch you out and send you home.
100 American dollars, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They use the American dollars, so there's not any money lost in the currency exchange. Your second offense being out of your home is 1 to 3 years in prison, in an Ecuadorian prison.
Wow. So there's no imagine. Strike three, huh?
No, sir. No, sir. So what we witnessed was panic buying, as were we, Friday at the grocery market, the grocery store. We witnessed the panic buying because they told you this Thursday at noon. So they didn't give you much time to react.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a very large window. And also to think about that as well, I'm not 100% sure if people have the access to social media technology, televisions, all that sort of thing. How did they pass that word around? Like, how did you all figure it out?
We're on social media, of course. They have Ecuador Playas media site. They have Ecuador expats for the expatriates, for people that are not from here. So there's several people have started channels to channel information, and they'll send you a link to something, and then you can read what it says. They'll send you a link to the law, or a link to the government, or link to somewhere that'll explain all the boundaries or ramifications and things like that of whatever they're proposing. Now, interestingly enough, their holidays are different than the U.S.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, basically they're the same, but they have extra holidays. And by that I mean,
I think everybody but the U.S. does.
Well, this Friday is Labor Day. It's called Day of Labor.
Oh, for them. I thought for a second, nah, man, that's not how that works.
Nah, that's what I thought. But my lovely wife has printed out the list of holidays for the Ecuadorian holidays for the year.
Is it about as big as
So
that flag behind you, so you know what's going on? You can schedule everything for you.
yeah, pretty close. You like that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ecuadorian flag. All right, all right.
yeah. So when in Rome, right?
Well, I was gonna
So
say you can have them pay for your retirement. So we need to go kind of half and half here, or something like that.
easy, easy, big
So
fella, easy. Panic buying. I mean, people were leaving with baskets full or two baskets and of groceries, and so it was. We got enough beer and Cheetos to run us through the weekend, and so we're okay.
well, I was gonna
And
say if worse comes to worse, you got two dogs.
well, yeah, yeah, well, cook them. Yeah, we got the air fryer too, so that might keep them
Yeah,
moist.
yeah. There you go.
So uh, we just uh, we just bought what we needed and stayed in the house.
Is
There
that
were very few people on the beach, very few, probably a half dozen the whole weekend that we saw maybe walking or strolling or walking their dog. I did see a couple of fishing boats out there, and I thought that guy's got some stones if he's out in the water and they're sitting on the side of the road, side of the land, waiting on him to come back to port,
hmm,
with his fishing boat. But it could be the only way that he has to feed his family. So,
could be?
it's hard to tell. So,
Wow. Is the only way that you can see that sort of thing or those channels is that through Facebook, or are there other means to get that stuff out?
oh, there's other means. You could go. Well, for them, for the population here,
Hmm.
I don't know if they put it on TV or these people can't afford a TV. It's word of mouth, or the neighbors telling them, or they come out and find it out the hard way.
No. Yeah.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Everybody here is pretty tight, and they look out for each other. So I imagine people are passing it on. Once they
Hmm.
once they find out about it. But it's really kind of scary because that in the U.S., they say, curfews at 8 o'clock, and everybody goes, ha, 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 yeah, sure,
That's when people start going home, right?
exactly. Here, you better be off the streets at 8 o'clock
Yeah.
because they don't, especially if you're not from here. Yeah,
Well, I
yeah, you're
mean,
not.
just a few more days out in that sun, and you'll fit right in.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right.
Wow.
So that was pretty interesting. But I read something about Tennessee
Hmm.
that the governor has opened up Tennessee.
He
Have you?
supposedly, Bill Lee, supposedly, from what I saw today on like my Chrome or Yahoo News, whatever kind of snippet you want to, or whatever channel we're going through, Bill Lee supposedly is lifting all the mask mandates throughout the state. I am 100% a millennial, so if you do not give me 100% of the information I need in the title, then we're screwed. So it tells you basically mask off by Future. I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but that is a song that says mask off, mask on, etc., etc., and it's was very catchy for a hot minute. But yeah, so right now it looks like it's mask off, and it's a scenario where so many of us are getting vaccinated, and we've been at home for such a long time. I think I mean, it's about time. From what I've heard and what the air quotes science has been from all of the current outlets I consume of content and media and whatnot, they're saying that it's right. It's time. People are getting vaccinated. Sun's out. People are still being somewhat cautious, but live your life because, as they've said from the beginning, the cure cannot be worse than the disease itself. Right. Well,
Correct.
to that end, um, it's something where I mean, it's 100-year thing, right? It only comes around every so often, and I think we did as best as we could to a degree, but there will always be a scenario where you can always do better, and you coulda woulda shoulda all the time, right? Nothing's ever done perfectly. It was in the height of a political scenario where we were having a major election ourselves, up in the U.S. And right now it's time to either nut up or shut up, where either lift all the restrictions and then let the pieces fall where they may, or just come out and say you're going to be in lockdown forever, and that's just how it's going to be. So, but yeah, off of that tirade, yes, supposedly the mandates are coming off, which hilariously enough is going to drive some of my friends, batty, because some of them can be very liberal. And then on the other hand, some of us are like, who cares? We never went out anyways. It doesn't affect us at all in a negative way. So,
Right.
six when a dozen of another. Now, I will say this, being inside and working from home, I've been very fortunate, and in this time where uh, it's been sadly a way to come by it, but one of my dreams is to work from home. I mean, my commute's 5 minutes from the bathroom after taking a shower to the office chair. So it's something that to me it affected me mostly in a positive way, other than a little bit of social things. But beyond that, yeah, it's incredible to see where how far we've come and where we're at right now. So
Well, you mentioned lockdown, and the day of labor is just Friday,
right, right,
so it's their Labor Day.
yeah,
The Minister of Economics and Labor Department said, you're not. There's not going to be a lockdown on Friday,
oh wow,
and
okay,
and then the president said, yes, there is. So
mm,
they're going with the president because
right,
he's got the most backing of the military and the policia, and so they're going with
Policia.
him. So it's going to. But see, my question is, not being from here, does that mean everything's going to be closed all day Friday? Do we need to do our panic shopping on Thursday? Because if it's Labor Day, are they going to close everything the day of labor?
Well,
Uh,
it's not like you in all the years that I've known you to not prep or not be where you could, potentially function in some way. And the reason
right.
why I say that is, you're not going to be somebody who's going to, for one, go without food for very long, but two, not buy multiple weeks out at a time.
What are you trying to
Uh,
say? Go without food for very long? I don't understand. I do
I
understand.
was
I'm
like,
just kidding.
oh, wait. Sorry.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, one thing that actually does lead into a great topic is fasting. When you take, when you sent me a message and said I'm going 3 days hardcore and just jumping into the deep end, I lost my mind, man, because that is something like we discussed for a length of time. Do not immediately jump into the deep end of multiple days sans food, or even if you went to go and juice or something like that. It is, I've only heard of poor experiences where people jumped into the deep end and weren't ready for it. A good example, Laura Metter. She even juiced where she had two, tumbler size liquid nutrients twice a day, and she even passed out, climbing onto a chair to grab something out of a cabinet. Like it's not good if you're not ready for it, because she just went hardcore, jumped right into it, and was like, no, 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 that's not how this needs to happen. And especially if you're trying to go without food, you're gonna put your body into shock, like not medical
Right.
shock where you're not gonna be able to function, but you're gonna have the craziest mood swings. Like you're gonna feel like you're gonna potentially faint. It's just really dangerous. Especially, I mean, even for me, I started out 16 and 8, which is what a lot of men do when they start out. It's very normal. Give yourself 8 hours in a day. Only consume nutrients during that time, and by that, you can't have coffee with sugar and creamer or whatever. Then you might be able to have coffee during that time, or maybe a tea that doesn't have any sweeteners in it, but nothing else. Like you just want to have water or potentially nothing during that
Right.
time, and then move into potentially either a 20 and 4 or maybe even a 24-hour on off, give it a try. Excuse me. And then after, oh, I've done this for, a couple months of building, and then go, okay, cool. I can now do 3 days. Okay, cool. You've done 3 days. Wait a quarter, right? Wait a few months, then try 3 or 5 days, because it's going to be difficult trying to, jump right into that, because you're going to hate it if you try to go too far too fast, and it's dangerous. So, step by step, you have all the time in the world at this point, I'm assuming, to be able to, you know, do whatever you want and focus on it. Where my biggest concern at that point, like we talked about in our text messages, was the boredom. Okay. And I'm not saying, hey, you're retired, you're going to be bored. I'm saying many people utilize food and the tradition and the rituals of food to kind of stay sane, stay on track, and that's stuff that they look forward to. Well, if you're making it something where you're taking that part out, well, then you have to fill up that time, right? So you don't, like, you're not working and then you're not eating. You could potentially spiral out of control, man, and just buy a boat and just start sailing off, because you're like, well, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to work, I don't have to eat, I ain't doing nothing, and just kind of go, sail off into the distance. So just keep that in mind when you want to start that sort of thing, because there's a lot that goes into it that's not, surface level knowledge.
Yeah, I've started with trying not to eat after 6 o'clock. Eat
Okay.
or drink anything after 6,
Right.
and I usually get up at 5:30 or quarter to 6. So we'll take the dogs and walk down to the beach and sit there for a little while. The sun comes up about 6:15, 6:30,
Sure.
and then we roll on back, and that's when I'll. So it's 12 hours
Well, I
without
mean,
eating or drinking.
12
So
hours, it's a great place to start. And then, you move up a little more, and a little more, and a little more. And then,
right,
start taking that time out and setting it aside, and but going in and having a plan, right? Like, say, hey, you want to do a 16 and 8 for a month, see if it's worth it and you can do it, and then go, okay, cool, I know I can do this. Well, you have the time, and I'm assuming not a super rigid schedule unless you make one for yourself, because there's no work, right? So you have to plan around different things. Well, if you plan around where, you don't have to plan around work, because with me, it was easy when I was doing my 16 and 8 or my 24 and like on off, on off, because I would say, okay, my start time of fasting coincides with my getting off time, right? Where you just have to plan that stuff out yourself. And you're like, well,
right,
when do I do it? Am I going to do it where, like, a good strategy is you want to go at 7 o'clock and then go until 7 the next day, PM to PM. So it's 24 hours. So you can eat dinner right before 7, go 24 hours, then eat dinner after 7 the next day. So you can actually still consume basically every
right,
day,
right.
but you just kind of space it out the correct way to kind of cheat the system a little bit, or like cheat your mental uh, capacity on it, basically. So,
Makes sense.
but yeah, it's just something else to do, and the best part is it's free, no money
That's
on
right.
it. You just concentrate on it, and you're good to go. So,
Eh, Well, and another thing, you talk about free. Everything down here is so cheap. A liter bottle of Sprite, a liter bottle is $1.
yay.
I mean, and to me, that's cheap. I was talking to a cab driver the other day, and he told me, we were talking about cerveza, drinking beer. He drinks Heineken, which I
Okay.
thought was very interesting, because he takes a can of Heineken out of. It's a cab driver on duty.
Sure. Yeah.
He's got a can of Heineken in his hand and a phone in the other hand, and he's texting. And
Awesome.
we're doing about 70 miles an hour on a 2-lane road. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I drink Heineken, man, because it's only $1 a bottle, or $1 a can,
Wow.
and it's like 6% alcohol. He goes, that's why I like it. And I'm like, Holy smoke, man! Put one of those hands on the wheel or
Yeah,
something, man.
right. That
Because you've
well,
been here.
well, that's
You
what your
know how
knees
when
for. Yeah, yeah. Well,
you've
hey,
been here. You know how when you're driving down the road and they cross over that double yellow line, the big old truckload of propane's coming at you. You know,
and we're
yeah, that was pretty interesting.
they're living on the edge down there a little bit, So
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah, yeah, they are definitely.
well,
But that
something that I'm surprised about. Of course, we scheduled this, on Wednesdays, set everything up for Wednesday at what 6:30. This is going to come out, of course, next Wednesday. Give us some time to edit and whatnot. But this Wednesday, right now, is when Joe Biden's having his talk. So we'll have to catch up on everything that happened tomorrow. I thought that was kind of humorous. I'm like, oh, the very first one, we're missing some political jargon by having his first. It's not State of the Union, but his first like congressional address or whatever. So
yeah, have you heard the specifics of that?
no, not in the
You
slightest.
know, when they excuse me, when they were going to impeach Trump,
Mm-hmm.
they were in there shoulder to shoulder,
Right.
packed in there, packed in the congressional hall,
Yeah.
you know, with witnesses and everything trying to impeach him. Well, tonight the place holds about 1,500 people, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Tonight there are only going to be 200 people there,
Cool.
and that's by invitation. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, gets to put out the invitations.
Interesting.
Yeah, even if you did 50%, that'd be 750 people, or you could put 500 in there. There will only be 200 people in attendance.
There you go.
So, yeah, it's most of the Republicans and some of the Democrats. You know, it's like we wouldn't come if you invited us
Maybe.
because they just don't want to. They don't want to hear it. You know, so
Hmm.
they're moving way too fast. They're moving way too fast on a whole lot of stuff.
Well, we got to fly fast and loose because Mr. or Uncle Biden might not be in there for very long, so he needs
Well,
to make as much of a dent as he possibly can.
well, I listened to an interview with President Trump today. It was the first time he had an interview since he had left the office, and yeah, it was interesting. I mean, they say the same old thing over and over, you know, about the election fraud and all, you know, the border and all that kind of stuff. And it's it'll be interesting to see what he does, because the suggestion was if he was going to run again, that right after the 2022 elections,
Mm-hmm.
that he announces his candidacy and picks his vice president. And see, normally they don't pick a vice president for 6-8 months into it, maybe a year into it. And the advice was announce your presidency right after the elections in less than 30 days and announce your VP so that you can split your forces and cover twice as much ground.
Sure.
And get out and you know, get the word out and get everything going. So it'll be interesting to see if he runs or not. I'd like to see Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, run for
Thought
president.
it was Rick DeSantis. Is it Ron?
What is it? Governor DeSantis. I don't know.
yeah, just
I'm not
governor.
on a first name basis with him.
Right. It's not like
is it Rick or Ron?
it's not like me and John Daniels, right?
Yeah.
Who I,
Yeah, that's right.
it.
Hey Mo.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not sure about that,
but a question I want to ask you is how the law enforcement question.
okay.
Why do people engage with law enforcement and expect a different outcome, so to speak? I don't understand why. I was always taught, you know, Dad worked for the FBI and Mom was a legal secretary for 15 years. So everything in our house was legal beagle. You never, ever messed with anybody with a badge and a gun. It was not going to come out good for you, ever. When do you think that mindset changed, that people want to mess with a police officer?
So
to me, that's unheard of.
well, actually, so let's unpack this, as they say, right?
Okay.
So, a couple of things we need to define first. Okay, one is engaging with a law enforcement agent, right? No matter what that is, need
Okay.
to first go over that. The next part is expectations. When you're saying people's mindset is changing based on an expectation, we first need to figure out what is the or your assumption of what that expectation is versus what you assume that expectation is now. Like where'd you start and then where are we at now? So, first off, what is engaging with a police officer or with a law enforcement agent in this case?
To me, it's any kind of confrontation, being confrontational
Okay.
with a law enforcement officer of any kind.
So, confrontational being what? So, and by that I mean we have to understand this. A lot of the times, we've all heard the 10 and 2, hands where you can see them, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, all this stuff. And that's, come down the line for you, me,
For
granddad,
years.
for
Right.
generations. It's always been, hey, we've been a part of law enforcement to some degree, or known people who are either in the military, in law enforcement, have it. But look at it like this. For one, look at it where we've been exposed to that in such a way where, just like you said in the beginning of this, it's not going to come out well for you if you don't do what they say, right?
Right. And then came tinted windows. I had to
So,
throw that in there.
wonderful. So, I mean,
Yeah.
even when people are being shady or not, one of the issues that you're running into now is we have to understand that law enforcement agents are there to protect and serve. Okay. What they're protecting a lot of the times should be air quotes the Constitution, which is what they're there for, is to protect and uphold the Constitution. Not at its core, and what you'll hear. And then when we look at it, where people nowadays, power corrupts, right? So you, you see online now what they do is, because I think a lot of the times you're going to find a lot of people will maintain our status quo of hands at 10 and 2, yes sir, no sir, etc., etc., yes ma'am, no ma'am, when it comes to a badge and a gun or a uniform in general. But there has been such a, not even necessarily an agenda, but when they only show you the bad stuff, it skews your belief window. Okay?
Okay.
So let's look at it like this: the police or law enforcement agents have hundreds of millions of interactions with individuals a year. Okay?
Okay.
The statistics behind that are pretty sound, but then look at the number of people who are, let's say, shot and killed. The number is staggeringly low. Okay. But we have the capability now that everybody's a reporter. Okay. Everybody can be the next big sensation, for good or for bad. And one of the issues that we're having is, they're going to show the negative interactions over and over and over, because, and it's going to get sensationalized because that's what people want to see. They want their, either their own biases strengthened for good or for bad, right? So you can look at it from a perspective of, these people are pushing an agenda, air quotes, the media are trying to say, like, are trying to reform everything. Or you can just say, hey, somebody had a bad day and somebody died, somebody was injured, etc., etc. But getting back to the point, when did the mindset change? I'm not necessarily sure it changed as much as you think, but I think that these small statistical, situations have skewed people into thinking these problems are much bigger than they actually are, right? Because I would still
Right.
think a majority of individuals, if they see a law enforcement agent, officer, whatever, they're going to normally do what they should for the most part, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But I mean, it's been very recent where you've had even people start talking about defund police or needing police reform. I saw something online this even just this week where it was like Finnish, Norwegian, and German police officers. They go through years of training before they ever come out of the academy, right? Before they even walk the streets. One thing to that discredit, because they said, and no one got killed. Well, for one, they don't have a whole lot of guns over there, so come on. And the other thing is, we have 330 million people roughly that live in the United States. All of those three areas combined only have 90 million people. Three countries combined only have less than a third of what we have here. So it's not really apples to apples. But to that end, there definitely needs to be more training that goes on. And someone said something interesting this week and said, when was the last time you solved a problem by taking away all of its money?
That's interesting.
Right. So if you want reform and you want better training, why are you trying to take away all their money?
I don't know.
So,
They're not thinking it through when they do that, and all the cities with all the murders and the gun violence and all that stuff.
sure.
I grew up in Memphis. Well, in
Mm-hmm.
1997, Memphis was a murder capital of the world. They had more murders in '97 than they had in the whole world anywhere
Wow.
in any city. Yeah, that's something to be proud of, right?
Huh,
Yeah,
I know.
whatever. Yeah. So, and they wonder why I left in '85.
Well, so
But
then the question goes back to, if that's what you think, or if that's what you're asking me, what do you think about it? Where did we or where did things skew and why?
I'm not exactly sure because I worked at a state prison
Mm-hmm.
in Memphis, and I worked at a state prison in Nashville, and I was a deputy sheriff in Sumner County, and I also worked at the county jail.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to people that have been incarcerated, it's been evolving over the years. Uh, you got your OG, which is original gangster, and then you got your young guys. I mean, I don't know. I don't know when it got out of control, but I don't know. I don't know when it got out of control, but I guess I watched too much Chicago PD because if there was more policing like that, where they
Aren't
did
they
whatever they
aren't they
did whatever they
beating
had to
confessions out
do.
of people?
Well, they did whatever they had to do to get to the bottom of it,
But the
and
problem
they did.
is that system doesn't work. And I'll say this, perfect example. I know you've heard about torture techniques and have seen enough movies to where you've seen the person, they go in and say, well, let's go and beat the crap out of this guy, and then he'll tell us what we want to know. And the experienced person says, when you torture someone, they'll say anything to get you to stop.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
Right, which isn't always
To
the best. So when we
correct.
look at that logic, you're talking about they need to do what they need to do to get things done. The issue is when they start doing that to the wrong people, but it still continues because they're getting people behind bars or whatever. That system is going to be broken down almost instantaneously. because at that
Okay.
point it's going to
Okay.
come to whomever has the biggest stick wins.
Okay. Two scenarios.
Okay.
One in Nashville, and one in Columbus, Ohio. The one in Nashville, police officers chasing the guy. The guy's got a gun in his hand. He shot the guy. Okay, and the guy died. If he hadn't shot him, and the guy had kept going and carjacked somebody down the street or killed somebody down the street, had that police officer not shot him, now he's on trial for manslaughter for shooting him. Um, and the guy was running away from him, no doubt. It wasn't an intimate danger kind of situation,
Right.
but it was going to be intimate danger to somebody else in just a few seconds when he got away from the police officer. Also, Columbus, Ohio, the girl's got a knife and going to stab the other girl. Police officer shot the girl. If he didn't shoot her, or like some of the morons are saying, well, why didn't he shoot a warning shot in the air? Why didn't he shoot her in the leg? She was going to stab the lady with the knife.
Mm-hmm.
If he didn't shoot her, then he stabbed the lady. Then it's on him. Then that lady's dead, and then he still got to shoot her.
Well,
So
one of the things. So two scenarios and two pretty good ones, but they're completely different. And let me break those down for you, or at least
sure they are.
tell you why. So, guy on trial, or actually, let's start with the other one first. The I believe it was Micaiah was her name. She's the girl who got shot. Okay, that was a just shoot because she was literally in the act of stabbing someone. I mean, knife was mid swing. Officer fires. She goes down. And even the girl that he saved thanked the officer afterwards for saving her life, right? Of course, they're not going to show you that. But that is a just shoot, okay? Because they're in the act of harming someone else. It's very cut and dry. Not a whole lot you can do there. You're going to have people who tug at the heartstrings of individuals where it's like, but you killed a 16-year-old. It's like, well, if the 16-year-old didn't have a knife and was actively trying to stab someone like in that second, I mean, because you have to look at it, you only had like 2 seconds to figure out what to do, right?
Correct.
Officers
That's
there,
correct.
guns out, knives out, slams against car. That's it. We're done here, because unless you drop the knife and put your hands up, it's over with. Because if not, a girl who was not, who was in the pink or whatever,
Right.
it's like done. It's over. Hit the femoral artery, and the girl could have kept stabbing other people. So at that point, when is it just? That I think is clear, cut and dry. It's over. Sorry, you made a bad decision. The cop reacted appropriately. The other scenario where a guy was running away, had gun in hand. Problem is this: unless he turned around to aim or was actively aiming at someone else, you cannot shoot that person. You just can't do it. Because we'll always think of the scenario, well, what if he was going to carjack someone and try to get away? Let me look at the scenario this way. He throws the gun in a storm drain or over a bridge, can't find the gun, and he runs off still, and he gets rid of the evidence. Well, you didn't get the opportunity to do good or bad. You shot him. Okay? You made the choice. Judge, jury, executioner. You're Judge Dredd out there, like, I'm the law. It's like, that's not how it works. Okay, if you are defending or protecting and serving, right, in UCA, this person's stabbing someone. I cannot allow that to happen. That's one thing. Guy runs away, gun in hand. He's just booking it, going straight. Obviously beelining it for a hedge or wherever that person's going. He goes away, and I understand they are similar until they are not, and it is very difficult to make that decision in the moment. I understand that. And that's one of the reasons. I mean, look at the military. They train for 6 months or for a year to go out on deployment for 6 months. The time training, it's always happening. It's recurring. And they're basically machines who go out there and have a very specific task. Where for cops, you might not know what's going on day to day. The training obviously is difficult. You're having to deal with civilians who you're on, like, having to walk a tightrope right now, where you're protecting and serving, but several of them are against you now. So you're having people, quit by the droves. So it's a weird scenario.
Right. Right.
But I do not think those are the same thing. One, you're protecting someone. The other, you're assuming you're protecting someone by taking out a whatever you want to call them, a predator, a perp, a criminal, but you haven't given them the opportunity to not necessarily right their wrong, but stop what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So, but
Well, they're not ever gonna show you the girl in the pink dress thanking anybody or saying I appreciate you saving my life, or you're not ever gonna see any of that. So
right, right. Well, and because it has become very sensationalized, which to that end, I don't think that's necessarily appropriate, but that's just kind of how it is. Like right now, it's something where I have a friend right now who not that you're going to care about this, but I just got finished watching The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Awesome, like pretty cool action. Give me more action. It was a little bit more politicized than I wanted, but it was still cool because it was about two guys becoming closer and doing the right thing and doing what's right. And Sam, I mean the Falcon, he's a black guy, and I thought had a great attitude and was portrayed very well in the show. And in the end, he does what he thinks is right, and picks up the mantle where several other people of his skin tone would not have, which is understandable. And it turned out pretty well in the end. But the terrorists in this organization are called the Flag Smashers. Okay. Well, they are the people who, it's honestly like, the difference between a terrorist and a revolutionary is the angle at which you see something. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So if you're fighting against, air quotes, a tyrannical government or tyrannical power, it's kind of interesting. But when I asked them, I said, "Would you join the Flag Smashers?" And then they go on this tirade of like, "Well, if people are this stupid, and if that's what it does to make change, then yes, I would." Or what they were doing wasn't too terrible. And of course, it was done in such a way where it makes you feel for both sides to a degree, because I mean these were like young people who were the terrorists and whatnot, so people probably a little younger than myself. But it was interesting how, I don't want to say radicalized because that's not fair to just throw that out there, but to become very opinionated and very, very much more, I would say, opinionated, or maybe even biased, or just angry about the situation. And it's something where earlier in life wouldn't have thought twice about anything like that. Just, hey, let's have fun with what we're watching, you know, more punchy, more guys flying around being superheroes and stuff like that. And I thought it was interesting because it always reminds me of um, the story that the grandfather tells the grandson. Oh, your flag just fell down.
Oh
Uh,
no.
tells tells the story about the two wolves inside. I'm sure you've seen that or heard that, where there's one wolf, and it's anger, and it's jealousy, and it's a lot of negative emotions, and then there's the other wolf, and they're constantly fighting. The other one stands for, like, goodness, charity, honor, stuff like that. And then the kid asks, well, which one wins in the end? And the grandfather says, the one that you feed. Right? So if you are always shown the negative and a bad message or a negative message, you're going to become more jaded in that way. Where, I mean, if you're shown the same stuff over and over and over, you're going to think, like, eventually, well, they're right. And I'm listening to this, and it's a bit of an echo chamber. So that's what I think now, you know?
Right. All right, I got you.
But pretty interesting stuff. So, but yeah, I'm not a whole or 100% sure about when people stopped. I don't want to say respecting the law because to a degree, everyone does that, right? But I think it's more, you have more instances now where the truth could potentially come out for certain things. Where, I mean, I'm sure you saw the video online where supposedly the police officer was literally dropping a crack pipe beside a guy he was arresting. I mean, really?
I didn't say it.
So that was something I'll try to send you the link to so you can see it, because once the guy figured out he's being filmed, he chases after the person with the camera because the dude knows he's screwed. You know.
Well, I did see where the police sergeant tased a guy that had a knife,
Mm-hmm.
and he brought him to his knees, and he rolled around twice and got back up and came over to the officer and stabbed that officer.
Sure. Sure.
With, still shaking from the taser. He's got this big old butcher knife, comes over and, yeah. So the tasing, not always.
Well,
but they didn't want to just shoot the guy.
Exactly.
They kept hollering at him, put the knife down, and he didn't. And they still didn't shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, that's a no-brainer. You're coming at me with a knife. I would hope my partner, I've got my taser in my hand pulling the trigger. I would hope my partner would take care of it before the guy got over there to stab me, So,
well, one of the problems you're going to have now is people are just going to not stop people. They're going to say, no, I don't want to be the next news sensation. Right. And they're going to let them go. A good example is like Metro, right? Because he did his 25. And of course, he obviously stopped for other reasons and whatnot, but he wasn't going to chase after somebody. That's because to him, it's like, that's dumb. And it was an unnecessary thing. So one of the issues with that is if you stop pulling people over, or if you stop certain stops, as it were, and you see certain functions, well, then does that mean that, where's the line at that point? Because if you say we're going to stop pulling over people with expired tags or no tags, or random traffic things, or even speeding to a certain degree, or, I mean, even people right now don't want to engage with certain groups because they know that it's just going to go to hell in a handbasket, and then they're going to be screwed. So
yeah, we got one Saturday afternoon. Pat was driving, and I was in the passenger seat, and another guy was in the back. And we went by this police officer, and we kind of looked at him. He was sitting backed up in a driveway. Well, he came after us.
Oh, okay.
And he stopped us. And long story short, he wrote us a ticket. She and I both, for not having our seatbelts on.
Weren't you on the back seat?
No, the other guy was in the back seat. I was in the passenger seat. She was driving. So, okay. So we went on, did whatever we were going to do. Well, later on that night, I was driving. Same night, same city. And that later on that night, I got pulled over. And when the guy came up to the car, he asked for license and registration. I gave it to him.
Yeah.
And he said, he ran the license plate and said, weren't y'all pulled over earlier today? And I said, yes, sir. No seatbelt. And he goes, well, you know why I stopped you? And I said, no, sir. He said, you roll that stop sign right there. I said, okay. But when he looked and saw that I had a CDL, he said, you don't need this ticket on your license, because that's how you make your living. And so he goes, just stop at the sign next time or something. Gave back to me and let me go. So that was an interesting day to be stopped twice in the same day, in the same city, by two different police officers. I thought that was.
Were you you were in the United States?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was confused for a second. I was like, why would they care what you had a CDL?
Yeah. Yeah, I was in the United States.
Gotcha. That's
So,
well, and look at it like this. Think about it like this. In the current state of things, or even how they've been for a long time, would they have done the same thing if you were a different shade skin tone?
well, the guy that wrote me the seatbelt ticket was a Caucasian, and the guy that stopped me for rolling the stop sign was African American. So,
Right.
I don't know.
But
I don't know.
would
You know,
they have changed that around? Like, let's say um, different set of circumstances, and they, like, let's say dude was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, you broke the law, and they're going to be more strict, with you or whatnot." So,
because I should have known better. I didn't think I rolled the stop sign, but I might have. I
right.
probably did. I didn't drive much because I drove for a living, so I didn't
Yeah,
drive vehicle very much when I was at home. So
sure.
that
Wow.
was an unusual time. So
Well, at least you weren't like Gina, who argued with the officer and said no and started to yell at him. And then he was like, "Well, we're just going to go ahead and give you a warning. I'm going to print this thing off. It's not a ticket, but it's a warning. Go ahead and have a nice day." Because it was a time when I worked, the 2 to midnight shift, and she came to take me out to dinner for my lunch break, and then she got real uppity with the officer. Oh, even though I was like, I think he's in the right, and I think you're wrong. But I wasn't going to bite the proverbial hand that fed me. So I let her argue with the officer, and then he let her out with a warning, and then all was dandy. So,
there
but
you go.
but that was wild. So cool. Well, any other topics of discussion you would like to go over today, good sir?
Well, that's all I had really written down.
Perfect.
Asking you about Tennessee
Yeah,
and what was going on there. Excuse me. And Florida's been open the whole time.
that's what I've heard.
No harm, no foul, and they're
Hmm.
still open and rolling along, and everybody else is catching up. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, eventually we'll all get back to some state of normalcy, and then and see what's going on. I did hear though today that if you are masked, or sorry, if you are vaccinated, stop wearing a mask. Just stop doing it, because it really, you shouldn't have to worry about it pretty much at all. And I'm thinking, well, in all honesty, I definitely do it to keep others around me safer, because that's what they've been touting forever, is mask up, because you don't want to give your germs to somebody else. That's really what it's for, more
Right.
so than taking in bad air or whatever. But to me, if it's still the norm, cool. If they take the signs down, cool. Whatever way that we want to have it. But let me uh, let me tell you this story. We are on our way to Chattanooga this past weekend. So we are on our way, and we were going to Thornton's to get gas, going, heading down to 109, then to 840, yada yada, then down to Chat. So I go in to Thornton's, grab some snacks, because it's like you look like a 9-year old with $100 whenever you're going to take a road trip, because you just buy a bunch of junk. And I get up to the counter.
Give me two of those, and give me six of those, and give me
Oh
three of
yeah, it was great. So get up to the counter, and behind the counter is a man with his mask on and a woman with her mask off. Okay, just to kind of set the stage here. There was a guy going up to the um, over to the cashier, who was the guy with his mask on, and I was in front of the lady with her mask off. And then I'm maskless, and the guy that they're helping, the dude over there by the counter, um, he's some chef. I only know that because of his outfit. And he walked out of the store, and the lady behind the counter says, men are trying to control everything, just like that guy was. And she's looking, of course, to the guy who just left, the patron there, and her her cohort behind the counter is just saying, well, I mean, he's backpedaling and whatnot. And then she looks over to me because I give her a look like, are you really going to have the conversation right now that all men are bad? Looking at me. And she says, oh, I'm sorry. She says, I apologize. And I said, well, this is 2021. You can't assume my gender. What if I identify as a woman? The guy starts laughing and says, "Oh, now we've turned it on you now." And of course, this lady is done, right? There's no getting out of whatever kind of words that she wants to try to say cuz you just can't win at this point. Cuz I beat her in the intersectional, hierarchy there.
Right. Right.
And she said, "Well, I guess you just can't say anything anymore." And I said, "You are exactly right. So before I get out my camera and start filming this interaction, I'm going to go." And it was just a wild experience. And because I, rattled off my line like nothing, because I think about that all the time. Like someone's going to essentially, and especially eventually, attack me for some random reason because I'm a heterosexual white male. Like I am enemy number one, right?
Right.
Well, that experience, it just made me chuckle because it goes to prove that the intersectional chart, someone could always one up you in some way and nobody wins. Okay. But the point is, nobody should be winning, and it shouldn't be where you have to outdo somebody else like that. So I thought that was a pretty comical story for us to end on because it just goes to show you that no matter what's going on, someone's always going to out victim you.
Right.
To some degree. And here's the thing, I didn't report the lady for basically trash talking, one of her patrons. I don't care. And I'm just trying to mess with you. But look at how that like escalates so quickly.
Right.
Because if I wanted to, it's like, well, she was harassing someone else and then me back to back, and then her life could be ruined. And it's a scenario where nobody needs or wants that for that sort of thing. It's their opinion. They're younger people. They're sitting there having a chat and they're just doing their thing, because I've been in that scenario before when I was slinging groceries over at Kroger where, I was talking to somebody I knew who was the patron in front of me who I was checking her out. And then the lady behind her got real mad at our conversation. And then I got in trouble. So I've learned from that sort of thing. But it just goes to show you can be out victim, and everyone's got to watch what they say, watch what they do, because you're being watched all the time, and it's incredible,
Have you ever been to Jim Oliver's smokehouse up in Chattanooga on the top of Mount Eagle?
No.
Okay. Well, it burned to the ground yesterday.
Well, then I guess I won't be.
And the smokehouse, the restaurant burned, and the hotel. Been there for years. It's a good place to eat.
Gotcha.
Good food. Yeah. Very top of Mount Eagle, like exit 135 or 134 or something like that. The very top of the mountain. Been there for years.
Wow.
Saw where it burned to the ground.
Well, just goes to show you that nothing lasts in this world except for the hierarchical structure of dominance hierarchies.
I did see where they got enough signatures on the petition to recall Governor Newsom in California.
Yeah,
That'd be interesting, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but they have to have so many of those signatures, and then they also have a candidate that everyone actually wants to vote for, and no one's going to vote for Bruce Jenner.
Caitlyn Jenner. I didn't know they had somebody lined up. I just knew that they had gotten enough signatures to.
Yes, Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay.
So.
Wow. Okay.
I know, right? Yeah,
exactly.
That's a fun note to end on. But this has been the Hey Dad, Where You At podcast. Where you at? You're in Ecuador. ran away from the United States, and now you're there.